The Taiping Rebellion was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, a mid-19th century civil war in China that claimed an estimated 20 to 30 million lives. At its center was Xiuquan, a man who, after failing the imperial examinations, claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ. Today we explore the tactical technology, the military might of the Taiping Heavenly Army, and the political power shift that eventually brought the Qing Dynasty to the brink of collapse. The story begins not with a general, but with a frustrated scholar. Xiuquan lived in a China dominated by the Qing Dynasty, an era where the imperial examination system was the only path to political power. After his fourth failure, Hong suffered a nervous breakdown. During his fever dreams, he believed he ascended to heaven, where a celestial father gave him a sword to slay demons. It wasn't until years later, after reading Christian tracts, that Hong realized the identity of the figures in his dream. The father was the Christian God, and the elder brother was Jesus Christ. This made Hong the heavenly king and the younger brother of Jesus. His mission was to purge China of demons, which he identified as the ruling Manchu Qing Dynasty. By 1850, Hong had gathered a massive following known as the God-worshipping Society. What began as a religious movement quickly militarized. The political power of the king was already waning due to corruption and the aftermath of the Opium Wars, creating a vacuum that Hong was ready to fill with military might. The Taiping Heavenly Army was a unique force in military history. Unlike the traditional Qing forces, the Taiping were fueled by a mix of religious zealotry and strict social engineering. The Taiping implemented a system of total war. They abolished private property, and every follower was a soldier. Men and women were separated into distinct residential and military units. Interestingly, the Taiping were among the first in Chinese history to utilize all-female combat units on a large scale. These women were often former laborers from minority groups like the Hakka, who did not practice foot binding, allowing them to serve as effective frontline infantry. The Taiping utilized a sophisticated system of flags and signals to coordinate movements. On the battlefield, they were known for their colorful uniforms and their 5-color flag system, which allowed commanders to direct thousands of troops with high precision. Their tactical technology also included advanced trench warfare and tunnel mining skills. They used to bypass the massive walls of major Chinese cities. In 1851, Hong declared the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. The army began a massive long march toward the Yangtze River. Their strategy was to seize the economic heart of China. By 1853, they captured Nanjing, renaming it the Heavenly Capital. The capture of such a major city gave the Taiping a permanent base of operations and immense political power. Once Nanjing was secured, the Taiping turned their attention to the north, aiming for Beijing. This was a crucial test of their military might. The northward expedition, however, exposed the limits of Taiping logistics. While they were masters of riverine warfare and siege tactics, they struggled in the cold, open plains of northern China. The Qing forces, utilizing traditional cavalry and the Green Standard Army, managed to harass and eventually deplete the Taiping forces before they could reach the capital. Despite this setback, the Taiping remained a formidable threat in the south. They controlled the Yangtze Valley, the primary source of grain and tax revenue for the Qing Empire. This created a dual sovereignty in China that lasted for over a decade. The Qing Dynasty realized that their traditional military might was insufficient to crush the rebellion. This led to two major shifts in tactical technology and political power. Imperial officials like Zhengguofan were authorized to raise their own local militias, such as the Shang Army. These forces were more disciplined and better paid than the regular imperial troops. They focused on leaping tactics, building forts to slowly encircle Taiping territory, a strategy of slow strangulation. Both sides began to look toward the west for an advantage. The Taiping attempted to reach out to Christian nations, hoping for an alliance based on shared faith. However, the Western powers, primarily Britain and France, saw the Taiping's version of Christianity as heretical and their political goals as a threat to trade. The Qing, meanwhile, began importing modern rifles and steam-powered gunboats. This period saw the creation of the ever-victorious army, a mercenary force led by Western officers, like Frederick Townsend Ward and later Charles Chinese Gordon. They utilized tactical technology like mobile artillery and steamships to navigate the canals and rivers that were previously the Taiping's domain. While the Qing were modernizing, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom was rotting from within. In 1856, the Nanjing incident occurred, a bloody internal purge, suspicion, and paranoia among the Taiping leadership led to the execution of the Eastern King, Yang Zhuking, and thousands of his followers. This internal conflict shattered the religious unity of the movement. Xiuquan withdrew further into his palace, leaving the military might of the kingdom in the hands of younger, less experienced generals. Though commanders like the loyal Prince Li Zuqing achieved brilliant tactical victories, the political power of the movement never recovered from the purges. The end came with the Third Siege of Nanjing. The Shang army had spent years closing the circle. In 1864, they utilized advanced mining technology to plant a massive explosive charge under the city walls. The explosion created a breach that allowed the Qing forces to swarm into the heavenly capital. Xiuquan died shortly before the city fell, possibly of illness or suicide. What followed was one of the most brutal sackings in history. The Qing forces, viewing the Taiping as demons, spared almost no one. The Heavenly Kingdom, started by a vision of peace and brotherhood, ended in a literal sea of fire and blood. The Taiping Rebellion fundamentally changed China. It forced the Qing Dynasty to decentralize, giving local governors and generals more political power, a shift that would eventually lead to the warlord era in the 20th century. It also demonstrated the devastating impact of blending religious ideology with modern military might. While the rebellion failed to establish a heavenly kingdom, it weakened the Qing dynasty so severely that it was never able to fully recover. The tactical lessons of the war, from the use of female combatants to the importance of river control, would be studied by future Chinese revolutionaries, including those who would finally end the imperial system decades later.